This is just a very high-level overview of Agile tools and technologies. Thought it was very pertinent given the new state of the world and the restrictions that have been put on people since COVID-19 has come out. And people that have not been familiar with Agile tools and technologies have been thrust into it. There is a significant amount of applications that go into it, and finding what's best for use for what you do and for your company. A lot of decisions, and what I would like to do today is just kind of briefly go over that. This will be the first of a series of webinars that'll go a little bit deeper dive, but felt it was important to first at least level set on the topic. So welcome. I'm going to try out something different today. I'll use a tool called Mentimeter. It's a polling tool. So if you could either use your cell phone or your computer, and please log in right here on those. This is the code. We're going to have some polls just as we should be interesting within a presentation, but I've seen it done before and it has some nice to it. So with that, how is everyone today? So once you go into the poll, it should work for you. So you can enter in as many as 4. Why don't we do that, see what happens. So what you'll see as this starts happening, people start entering in how they're doing, it kind of gives you a sense of where we're at today. Maybe really energized, really excited for this. But as we go forward, what you'll see is we'll have some direct questions in the chat box. Let's go that route since it seems not to be working. What interested you about joining today's webinar? I'm going to get into the summary here as we're talking. Just use the chat box, kind of what you're looking out of this. But long and the short, Agile tools and technologies. What's been occurring as of the last couple of years is there's been a lot of transformation and a lot of things at speed, and through that, what's come to rise is what's called Agile frameworks, and there's many different types of that, and we'll be going into that. COVID-19, what it really did was it really put a highlight on this of which companies were positioned to be able to work from home, to work effectively from home, and then rise and accelerate their workforce. So what it's done is a lot of people have always worked in an office. Some have done work from home remotely. Some have always worked remotely and globally distributed. But now everything's coming together, and what it's showcasing is there's a lot of tools and technologies out there. What's been rising is that there are security issues, so that's a good thing actually, so that they can get more firmed up as awareness comes about with them. And what we'll do today is we'll go through, there's 6 different stack layers that make up the tools and technologies. And what I want to put emphasis on is today is the first stack, which is really around collaboration and ChatOps tools and defining and planning. And that'll be the first layer because I think it actually is very pertinent to what people are doing today, and you'll have kind of an understanding, or maybe you'll take something away going, hey, that's something I want to look into. But here's the one thing as we start going into this a little bit further is, it's great to have all these tools, but as we get into this a little bit later, there's this thing called the Agile Manifesto, and there's some core principles that really hold true that if you want to make this a very viable and great work environment and products. There's a lot of case studies out there that show that that's the proper way to organize. So topics we'll go through today: World 1.0 to World 2.0. So what was the world like pre-COVID versus, okay, now we're all working from home, they're calling it the new normal. But I look at it as this was coming anyway, it's just leapfrogged to this. We'll give a high-level overview of what Agile is. I'll then give a little bit of a brief overview of the 2020 State of Agile report and trends that are coming. It's very interesting, and that'll be another webinar that I'll be putting on July 1st that really goes into that topic. What I just was saying before was that Agile applications and tool stack and layers. We're going to really look at that so you can understand where do I fit into this versus, oh, this is where the other part of the company works versus another part of the company. Now I have an understanding of why everything is kind of integrated and what I do affects everybody and how they affect you. Then we'll get into working remotely with Agile tools because it's very specific ones that pretty much everyone will be utilizing within their companies. And then there's other call outs to specific functional ones. And then kind of a brief overview of what I see coming ahead. There's a lot of companies that are starting to see products they like. They're purchasing them and they're integrating them into their tool stack. And so that's a great thing. It's not a scary thing because that's going to breed innovation and a lot of new features and a lot of new opportunities is the way I look at it. A lot of good things, a lot of great things are coming ahead. And at the end, I'll just give a kind of little overview of the 10 Agile we're working with. What we do is we offer safe online courses, so you can sign up and you can take get safe certified through the courses that we're offering. And there's also we have a number of upcoming. Someone's trying to join. We got a number of people doing webinars over the next several weeks. So kind of give you highlights of where that's coming. A little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for over 25 years. My undergrad was in applied actual mathematics and computer science. This is all pre-Windows, so not to date myself. Through that, my first position and career move was with an actual consulting firm. And by the time I was 23, 24, I developed an actual modeling system that was probably 15 years ahead of the industry from then where I went. I did a lot of different new product development, again, all cutting edge pioneering that eventually became industry standards that I ended up marketing and selling. From there, my career moved to doing different startups. People came to me and recruited me for that. Very interesting, where then I started taking my knowledge of working with vendors to really scale 10,000 plus employee corporations that I was working with and leading. What I'm doing now is I'm actually adding in really where do I think things are going. I mentioned before, SAFE is a framework, and we'll get into that a little bit. Been doing this a very long time, where you can see I have a number of different certifications, Six Sigma Master Black Belt, PMP, ITL. The ones on the bottom are from, like, I'm a pension attorney. So I have a very, very big gambit, but as I've been looking through the years, the component that was always missing with how I integrated all these different frameworks really comes together, and there's going to be a webinar on this. So look to 10 Agile's website on Safe Agile Framework. They came out with version 5 recently, and that integrated how business is now part of the framework. So in the past, everything has been focused on IT. However, now with the business, it's really, there really is no business that doesn't touch, there is no industry that Agile does not touch. So there's going to be more coming out on that. But it's a great time to be in this, and a lot of things coming. A couple courses I have out posted right now that I'll be doing. On the 20th and 4th, I'll be offering up doing a safe DevOps, a certification course. Then I'll also be doing July 18th, Safe for Architects. Both of these courses really speak to my background. I've taken companies that didn't have a DevOps and literally implemented, built the software, everything you can imagine. And then from there, scaling it to different products to 70,000 employees. There's a lot to go into that, but just gives you kind of breadth of what my background's on. Okay, so welcome to World 2.0. So, everything seems to be like, you're at your house, you log in, where's my buddy that used to sit next to me? Well, they're still there. It's just kind of, we're doing the virtual fist pumps now. So kind of, if you take a step back and you kind of think of, World 1.0, by default, people had to be in the office. You worked out of there. It used to be, before, little relaxed on how you suit, but you wear a suit and tie. I remember those days. You get your business cards. College tuition is out of control. Trusted into institutions, and then you sat in your car and you got in traffic jams and you had to factor that into your days. And then everything you worked on was physical, and I'll get to that in a second. So now you fast forward, and even though you might have been working in this, but as of sometime in March, when the regulations came in and people had to stay inside and work from home, by default, World 2.0 now becomes you're working out of your house or your apartment or a certain space. Your office is really now what's become a community. So think of it this way: the people you work with, instead of going next to them, you're virtually connecting with them. And this will be in a different course that I'll go into further, but there's ecosystems for the IT parts, spaces around it. How do you connect back into them? How do all these tools integrate? It's a very interesting topic. So right now it's kind of, this might not apply to you, but as things go forward, where you would have invested maybe in a suit or something, lighting is very important, so that, and when you're actually showcasing your face and stuff on the video, microphone, modulation, webcams, you might have a green screen behind you. Again, it all depends on what you're doing, how you're investing it. In the office, you might have a cubicle, you might have an open space floor plan, you might have an office. Now, in your residence, it's, do you have a space? Are you working out of a different room? Are you working out of your kitchen? It's totally changed. Where I see a lot of things, and the trend is definitely moving towards this, and this is what I was talking about, how 10 Agile is offering a number of courses, is people in the past, college was a thing and you had to put the money into it, but as trends or things will emerge over the next several years, getting certifications online, big push for that from major corporations, and that I don't see that changing. So depending on what your area of concentration is, this is something to really think about. And if you need more information, feel free to reach out, to 10 Agile or myself. We can put the information in the chat. It's also listed at the end of the webinar. So before it was trusted institutions, like for your companies and whatnot. Now, if you haven't started feeling it, it's okay. Now things are virtual. I might be not in my comfort zone just as much. So it really comes about trust and transparency, and that's just human behavior, and that's how things are coming. So the extra time you might have when you were commuting in traffic jams, now it's okay. You're at your house. There's different things I could use for that. or maybe I want to use it for continuing ed. So going back up here to the webinar, or look at it as a huge opportunity of, you know what, I actually get to see my family now, as opposed to, you know, I'm trying to work. It's really the mindset of where do you want to put your focus now that you have extra time, even with the amount of gas you might have spent or going, you know, for a train or an airplane, you know, where do I allocate that money now to? You know, there's a lot of different ways to look at this, and that'll be going into, I'll get into that a little bit more on my next webinar on June 23rd, where it's really going to hit about the work from home, what the new norm is there. You know, and then, you know, what, instead of $4 toast, you know, what do you want to spend that money on? And from physical, it's purely digital. And by digital, I mean, you know, it's all your applications, you know, how you have your house set up. It's, you got maybe 2 monitors now. You never had that before. So it's very interesting. I'll get into this in a future webcast, do a little deeper dive. So if you have seen some of these tools, feel free to put them in the chat box. So pre-COVID, so this is these are reports in the industry. So the State of Software Development report, this came out in March 2020. So this is just as COVID is happening, but it's very interesting. So Slack is a collaboration tool. You know, email, you've probably used that. So you see the trends here. Jira is a project management tool. So, and that's probably the #1 player in that. I'll get into that in a little bit. MST is Microsoft's ChatOps tool. Same thing with Google Hangouts. Skype can be a number of different, it could be your ChatOps, it could be your video, it could be shared screen. Zoom, same thing. So you kind of see, here's where the things were. And this is very, very, very interesting. So as of May 8th, so this just came out about a month ago from Business Insider. They did a poll, I think it was around 40 or 50,000 people. And then 3,000, roughly 3,000 software buyers was the populations that they did this against. So webinar conference software, it's jumped to 67%. So think, you know, are you using Zoom? Are you using Google Meets? Are you using WebEx? How are you now working and collaborating with your fellow people, and even in your personal life? You know, maybe you haven't used that before and now you are. And what you'll see in that is, you know, there's always something great with them, but then there's other issues that arise, and that's where I go back to, hey, you know, this will be a good thing because they're going to make the product better. So if you come over here and you say web conference software, Zoom is at 13%, Skype is at 14%. So you had 14% in March, now you got 67%. So you got a jump of about 40% in just that short time. So the need for web conferencing and people interacting has now jumped significantly just in that, and I call it like a leapfrog. And this is a trend that'll I see keep happening. And then as you go down here, collaboration tools, 57%. So, you know, Slack was 58. So, you know, for the most part, however you classify that, that's still kind of standard. This will keep increasing. You know, remote desktop tools, that's increased significantly. But here's an interesting part. Telemedicine didn't even show up as of March. So it was like 0.1%. And now you're at 11%. So think of this as with you needed to have an appointment with your doctor. They might do a pre-screening. So instead of meeting in the office, they now do it with video. That is absolutely, that's an industry that's jumping right now. I see this number dramatically going up. So if you work in the healthcare industry, this would be something I would pay close attention to, because this is a huge opportunity for people that are interested in it. So in the chat box, unless I can get the Metameter to work, right here, when you think of Agile tools and technologies, you know, I'm going to ask you this in the beginning of the workshop here, and then at the end. So what terms come to mind when you think of Agile tools and technologies. Just put them in the chat box. I'll see if I can get the Mentimeter going. Come on. Nobody has thoughts on Agile tools and technologies? So the chat box should be on your right. That's one. Okay, so we'll get into this in a little while as we go through, and then at the end they'll say, I kind of wasn't looking at that maybe from that perspective, but now it makes a little bit more sense. Another one to keep in mind is, because I see some of the chats in there, here we're saying what tools and technologies, because those are two different things. And then I'm getting into what are Agile applications. I see Jira out there, I see Rally. So here, when you get into different types of what Agile are, and maybe some of these ring a bell, there's extreme programming. That's a version of it. You got your Scrum, your Safe. You might hear the term sprints, Kanban. What are your risks? You have a backlog. What's a retrospective? Each of these play different roles in Agile. When there's two different things here. So when you look at comparing waterfall versus Agile project management, there's a little differentiator here. So waterfall fills into the plan process, driven process. So it's a very more rigid methodologies. There's pros and cons to it, but what's been emerging for some time now is if you want to keep pace with technology and stay ahead of your competitor, companies are now moving further away from waterfall for many different reasons, and move towards Agile different frameworks and methodologies. Where you get into the waterfall, it's very predictive. It's very fixed and rigid. You stick to a schedule so the scope doesn't change. And then you get into it's a longer time span. Agile, what it really premises on is an adaptive type of working on a project. You have a fixed schedule versus scope. Those are two different things. And then you can adjust your scope to preserve the schedule as you're going. So it's okay to make changes because you're working in very short development cycles, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. They're called sprints. And as you get into that, you refine and you make changes as you go, and that's okay. Because what you're doing in essence is you're delivering value incrementally over time versus one big bang at the very end. So, it's quicker, it's faster, you can adapt. One of the 10 Agile people will be putting on a webinar on this very topic alone in the coming weeks. So, if you're interested, I'll show you that at the end to go look for that and sign up. Okay, so, what is Agile? I was talking to a little bit before. It's a framework where you organize and manage your work. So there's different types of methods. So I was just saying Scrum. Right now, depending on the size of your company, Scrum's the most popular. And I'll get into that when we get into the State of Agile report. Kanban, that's another flavor, extreme programming, lean, feature-driven development. Then there's other types that come into. So the reason why I'm including this is it's really, you're working in quick loops. You define what the workload you're going to do, you build it, and you release it, and you just go and you just keep churning it out, right? And what all this really comes back to is the Agile Manifesto, and what it really, there's 4 components that come out of it. So what it focuses on is individuals and interactions over the process and tools. You working software over comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. So when you take a step back, maybe you have been working within that framework. You could say, well, the stuff on the right makes a whole lot of sense, but what's been proven out time over time, for the past decades plus, is more of the items on the left show the value. And again, this will be a future webcast that 10 Agile will be putting on. If you're looking for more information on this, feel free to go out to agilemanifesto.org. Right there, there's 12 principles that are on it, and they go into a little deeper dive. Again, I'm just giving you a very high level, what is Agile 101, before we get into the rest of the stuff. All right, so right now, what's really trending out there? I was talking about different frameworks. Companies are changing on a dime. They have to adapt. So what's really going on? So the 14th annual State of Agile report came out in April, like third week of April or beginning of May. And it's very, very interesting. So right now, Scrum, which I was just describing because it's the easiest to implement because it's smaller scale, this is at 16%, whereas Scaled Agile Framework has grown, I think it was 15% since last year, to become the most popular. It's towards like enterprises, so very large organizations. More and more colleagues of mine are reaching out on Scaled Agile, and they're looking to implement these because you've gone from, let's say, Agile, iterative, some sort of hybrid approach that now, because of it's been proven with a number of companies that Scaled Agile Frameworks delivers very quickly results to your end customer. It speeds up everything, and even the collaboration within the organization. So you'll probably be hearing a lot more about this. It's a great time, if you haven't been exposed to it, to really look into Scaled Agile. And I really see, after doing this 25 years, I'm pretty much going all in, that I believe in this more so than the other frameworks I've learned over time. I really see this as driving all industries. It's not just financial or healthcare. It's pretty much anything you do, it can apply. And more on that. All right, so at the end of the day, right here, when you think of the world, you might be one of these dots, and before that's where you worked. What's occurring and what's going to be rapidly expanding is your team, most likely, if you're working within a corporation of 1,000, 2,000 people, is going to be moving to a very global centric, dispersed team, except since now maybe you're going to be working from home, and that might become the new normal, and you don't go in the office. Who's to say that the people you work with, like let's say 12 people, all of you aren't all over the globe? Because as I get into a little bit and touch base on the tools that are out there and how you collaborate, things are such real time now that it really doesn't matter to be physically sitting next to anyone anywhere. But there's a very, very important thing to always remember. The software that you put in needs to be flexible, and the architecture needs to be crisp. And because of that, it adapts to changes better. So when you start at the beginning, and that's the pillar that I'll get into with the ChatOps, you really need the right communication infrastructure for your starting point before you really can scale and expand on the other tools. And when I show you this a little bit, what happens with companies is they decide, yes, this is the way we want to go, and then they say, okay, I'm gonna go get Slack. Well, they haven't taken a step back of how you're going to implement it, because now we have we're using email, we're using Skype, we're using Teams, they have like one of everything. And it becomes more cumbersome to keep track of stuff instead of just downsizing to the correct tool and then scaling out to the rest of the company. And again, that's a different topic. So today, what we're getting into is really what I was explaining is the Agile tool application stack layers. They fall into these 5 categories. And you'll see a little bit when I was saying there's a lot of applications, and trust me, it's not a full comprehensive because it's growing daily. But I'll highlight what the key market leaders are and what I really see as the front runners for innovation going forward. So collaborate, and this is where we're going to focus our time today because it probably is most resonant with what people are experiencing right now. When you collaborate, that can be on many different levels. It's really your communication with people, but what is that? We'll talk about that and we'll go deeper dive. Build is when you construct something, and it could be a product, so it doesn't have to be software. So you could be writing content, let's say, and you put that together, like an article, and you hand it off to someone to let's read it, critique it. Well, that's really someone testing it. The terms can be however you want. Because this is really more geared towards an IT run. However, if you go back and put a business focus on it, your build technically could be, hey, I just wrote something. I wrote a statement of work. Someone needs to review it. That's my test. Hey, is it good to go? Yep. So now I'm going to hand it off, and then you give it to the customer. So what I was just describing here, there's different classification and categories that fall under here. So under collaborate, there's what's called the application lifecycle management. There's another subgroup, and we're going to talk about that falls under there. But as some people were putting in the chat, here's Jira. That's one of the largest out there right now by Atlassian. Asana is a lower level one, and if you have a small team, that might be a way you want to go. I was mentioning Slack before. That's a chat op tool. What's really nice about Slack, and there's another one called Mattermost, that's for more regulated industries. And then there's Microsoft Teams. Mattermost implemented engineering for 70,000 employees. Learned a lot with that because you have to put in your security when you're going global and work in different clouds. But what's nice about these, and this is where the future of email I see disappearing, and we've all probably experienced this, is these tools keep a history in one place of whatever you wrote. Now your emails, they go off track, when people are doing stuff. That's a whole different topic. Or maybe your company doesn't keep a retention policy on them, and then really good documentation disappears. But here you have a repository for them. Knowledge sharing. How are you communicating with people? There's a tool by Atlassian called Confluence, which in essence is like a wiki page. And if you integrate these well and you put webhooks with them, you can then say, okay, I'm in Slack. That's my hub for communicating with people. Okay, someone just updated and posted something on Confluence. You put some chatbots in there to do some automatic communications. It'll give you something here in Slack to say, hey, go look at what I posted. Or same thing within Jira, that's a task management system. So here I updated whatever work I was doing. It sends a note to Slack, hey, go check this out. So now there's no need to have email because that's your hub if you think about it if you're in the very middle. Within the build, I'm only gonna hit these really quick. You have your CI, CD, you got your builds, database management. In testing, there's a plethora of different tools out there. Some are static code, some are, checking real time, some are security based. Selenium's a nice tool. Cucumber is out there too. A lot of people have used that. Within your deployment, that becomes, again, a whole nother thing. So if you're looking to learn more about this, and on the surface, the DevOps course I was mentioning earlier really gets into this type of framework. And then a lot of these different tools have actually helped implement it at a number of corporations. But the key is then, even if you implement them, how do they talk to each other? And that's a whole nother layer that it goes into. But I just want to give you, so you see here is you have so many tools, whereas maybe in the past it's, okay, I have my email, I kind of do that. Now I do this. But it demonstrates that no matter what your role is in a company, there's something that you're doing or something else is doing that touches the work and then the output to the value add to the customer. And again, we're going to be focusing here on the collaborate side of the house. So again, like I was just saying, so many tools, I look at it as so many opportunities. I don't look at it as, oh, I'm overwhelmed. It's, wow, there's so many different ways we can make this a quicker, faster, better world that we work in. We're now going to focus on the collaboration tools, the planning and requirements that fall under ALM, communication and ChatOps, and then knowledge sharing. All right, so under your remote work collaboration tools, I put these in a couple different classifications here. There's what's called the ideation and collaboration. So, and the blue here represents like what I think are very good tools if you want to go into these. So I'll start off just with the collaboration tools as we were talking. So collaboration tools. How do I send notes to, like, or how do I reach out or get communications with my fellow employees? So like I mentioned Slack, you got MS Team, Google Hangouts, Mattermost, MS 360, Google Docs, WhatsApp. So you see here, a lot of these might be recognizable to you. They fall under what we call collaboration tools. Another one here is for polling. So like if you're here and you might have a meeting going on, how do you engage each other? How do you kind of say, okay, I have a question, let me get some feedback on it. Maybe you've heard of Cahoots, Doodle. You can use Zoom, Skype, Teams, but what I was trying to demonstrate before is Mentimeter is a very good tool. It's better than actually Cahoots, excuse me. And there's a lot of different polling you can do with this. It's something to kind of, if you're interested, go check it out. And then depending on what you do, and this is something that's going to evolve very fast, is maybe in the past, when you're in the office, you need to whiteboard, but now it's, okay, well, how do I whiteboard with people real time? What are the visual boards? How do I do my charts? How am I going to do road mapping? How are we going to do this together? How are we going to collaborate? We used to be like in a room doing this. How do we brainstorm? So there's tools out there, and again, I'm just touching base on them, but I'll do a deeper dive in a future webinar. Miro is a very good tool, and Mural, and like each of these are very, very good that you can do real-time collaboration, whiteboarding, dependency tracking, very, very good. I put mind mapping on here, and this might be something new for people, but I see this as a very evolving topic that's going to come into play, where again, Miro has the ability. I'm going to show this in a future webcast, but it's really nice because what happens is if you're starting out a project and you're brand new team and you're trying to figure out how do you solve for things, very quickly you can show the dependencies, the subcategories, and the different classifications. So if you're interested, go check these out. It's a really cool tool, and it's powerful if you're doing it in the right way to then really pull this all together if you're leading a team and trying to get everyone to brainstorm. So up here I wrote, define your needs. So like, what are you trying to solve for? What are you really looking to do? Then you pick your tool. Don't go the opposite direction because, hey, I heard that's cool, let me go look at that. No, well, what are you trying to solve for first? You want to be smart with how you invest your time. And then also, what does your company have? What I've learned is, when you're scaling products and the size of the company, they might have one of everything. So then you're looking at, well, out of those, what's the best one? You go through an evaluation, their gaps, how are you going to integrate these? but you might already have what you're looking for. So, raise your hand, ask questions. That's good. And maybe you'd be saying, hey, have you looked at this? And, because this is a rapidly expanding part of what is, I'm calling the new normal. There's going to be very highlighted on this because people are going to need it to do their jobs remotely. Work management. So, how do you leverage your ALM team tools? Are you using Jira, for task tracking? This is a Plainview Lean Kit. They just renamed it. You get your Azure DevOps. So as you see here, trends start coming through version 1. That used to be Rally. What are this right here, I put in PI planning tools. And if you haven't experienced this is when you have, the major thought leaders of your company would come together and be collated, didn't matter where they were in the world, and for like a 4-day event where you would brainstorm of what are all the different things we're trying to solve for, and because you had all the experts there. And then you would collect your information, you would be putting it up and then doing dependencies. This is a whole different topic. But what's going on right now, and it's emerging very, very quickly, is the need for a really good PI planning tool. Plainview Lean Kit, again, they have a really nice one. PI planning is also a nice one, and Miro. Scaled Agile is developing Weave, and there's some really good things, and you can go check that out on their website. But if you haven't heard, this is an area that's going to be rapidly expanding from my experience, and it's very interesting. I'm watching that quickly because I think the next level of how people work is going to emerge from this. And then at the end of the day, like, how do you measure continuous improvement? Scaled Agile has a health radar out there that you can look online. It's really nice. It asks you a bunch of questions and then it gives you a radar outkick. Agility Health, they have all different kinds. They have one for HR, they have one for business, they have one for IT. Plainview, again, they have some nice stuff. So if you're in the aspect of where you need to run some metrics or see where there might be opportunities in your company, tools are out here with these. So video and online meetings. I'm sure everyone here has been in some form doing this over the past couple of months. Zoom has emerged out of nowhere and really taken off. So that's when you've probably heard we're using Google Meets right now. MS Teams has their version of it. Skype, that has a version of it. WebEx, what's happening here is their platform is getting exposed because it's not strong enough to hold the stress on the system. So out of this, you're going to see a lot of new features. Even Facebook's now coming out with their own type of piece to all of this. So people are taking notice. Large corporations, even if they don't have these, are going to be starting to offer it because the need has drastically expanded with everybody globally being restricted to go into the workforce. So this right here is going to be very interesting. It's already happening, but the new technologies and the new features and then the stability of the platforms even will be coming out of this. And then you have different tools for screen sharing if you do that. A lot of these do it anyway, but here's a couple other ones. TeamViewer is pretty good. We just went through what Agile was. We talked about, hey, here's a Kanban board, here is Scrum. And then we went into technology. So I first asked you this in the beginning, what came to mind when you thought of Agile tools and technologies? Whereas when we walked through this, I gave you half dozen different frameworks, there's more. Then I also just showed you probably a couple hundred applications. There's a ton more, but they all kind of work. And I also broke down, the different pillars in which those applications live, so to speak. So having said that, in the chat box, why don't you add in, even if it's the same thing, if you put Jira, okay, fine. But hey, wait a second. I wasn't thinking Zoom is really an Agile tool technology. Now I know it's part of a collaboration piece that goes into one of those pillars. If you want, please add those on. Or just write yourself a note, because as a takeaway. Whoops. All right, so I was just talking a little bit about looking ahead, what's the future of the Agile tools? Very, very interesting space to be in right now. So this happened probably about a month plus ago. It wasn't that long. So, people in the value stream management, software delivery, and application security, these were three heavyweight hitters that actually merged. They fall into, and they were on those slides I showed you a little while ago. They all are on the Gartner 2020 report that shows, okay, who's the visionaries, who's the leaders in the industry, and each of those were in it. Well, they just came together now to digital AI. Go check out their website. A lot of great stuff out there, great tools, but they also put out a lot of great content to read. It's www.digital.ai, real good. So what I'm saying is people are now joining forces because of the need to really have a one integrated, one-stop shop tool. Atlassian, that's the company that owns Jira. They own Confluence, Bitbucket. So they have a whole suite. And it's an interesting company too, because they've moved to a cloud adoption, but there's different elements and classifications that fall into that, which they've learned quickly. So their pricing models have changed. But Atlassian, if you haven't heard of them, you're going to be hearing a lot about them. They're rapidly moving. As I look forward to what I'm calling Innovation 3.0 to rise. So remember I said World 1.0 to 2.0. So in the next 6 to 18 months, what I'm saying is a lot of these companies are going to be either joining forces or because of competition, it's going to drive the evolution of new products. So it's a great time for all of this to be going on. It's going to help rapidly expand in what you get to use, and it's going to assist with whatever you're doing. Just this past weekend, AWS, Amazon, they're partnering now with Slack to implement Slack's ChatOps box, and they're doing this for all of AWS's enterprise employees. So if you take a step back and you think, okay, well, Slack's it's a ChatOps, it can do this, it can kind of do that. What Slack was missing was the cloud element of it. Now they're with AWS. That's going to drastically drive both companies' expansion on tools. And the reason why I highlight this is you got Microsoft out there. They have their teams, but it's highlighting there's some inefficiencies within their suite, depending on how you're scaling it. And now here they're ready for scale. Then Google has meets. Google's throwing a ton of engineers at expanding their suites. And so this right here is a great thing, not a scary thing, that is going to drive the evolution of what is or what will be the next level of the digital revolution. And here, just as a closer, something that I always like to think, because and this is just a mindset thing, as the world changes, and if you go back 10 years, the stock market, the housing bubble, and everyone was gloom and doom. Instead of saying, wait a second, there's always opportunities. So what I like to always remind myself of by Winston Churchill is you never let a serious crisis go to waste. It's an opportunity to do things you think you could not have done before. So I'm looking at what's going on right now is not a bad thing. It's, okay, how do I refocus and reprioritize potentially? Now I have all this extra time that I was in my car. Well, what am I doing? Maybe I'll study, maybe I'll read, maybe I'll spend it with my family. But look at that as a huge opportunity. And this is a nice thing to always look back on. Winston Churchill speaks for himself. So at the end here, so many tools, so many opportunities. is the way I look at it. You know, it's part of the digital transformation. You know, I think it's a very, very exciting time. I'm calling it World 3.0. Here we come. It's, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be playing out in the next 6 to 18 months. You know, I'm really excited to be part of it. And, you know, it's really good. So right now, just want to open up. Again, this is a very, very high level on the topic. We're going to be deeper dive on future webcasts, as well as other 10 Agile colleagues that they'll be offering. If you have any questions, throw them in to the chat box. My contact information is at the top, so you know my bio is out here. If any questions, you know, feel free to shoot me an email. Check me up on LinkedIn. You know, so closing here, I was talking about, you know, safe is what I believe, and I truly believe in this. The next framework that's going to be taking off. So if you have your PMP, or maybe you have, you know, Six Sigma, or maybe you have Scrum certifications, companies are now putting within their job descriptions when they're looking for people. They're definitely looking for people that have certifications in safe courses. We're also putting on a number of different webinars, so you know, check those out. Maybe there's different topics you might be interested in, or if there's ones that you're looking for, you know, shoot us a line at 10 Agile. Again, here's, you know, I got 2 webinars coming up. I'm going to go a little bit deeper dive on these work from home tools. We just touched base on them today. And then we also talked a little about the State of Agile report in July. These are some upcoming safe courses that'll be leading an instruction on. Again, here's the links. Oops. So different webinars that the company has right now. Here's the one that was today. June 24th, we'll have one on overview of roles and courses within SAFE, State of Agile report. So you know, go check them out. Maybe one of these or something you're interested, or maybe there's something else you're interested in. This weekend, so right now when you go out to 10 Agile's class website, we have classes posted all the way up until, you know, beginning of August. You know, they're all remote, so you can take them from home. In the past, you had to take them in person, or someone had to come to your company. This is a huge opportunity to now, you know, take the class, learn more about it. You can go out to SAFE's website. You know, they have a plethora of information. Feel free to drop us a line. And, you know, it's, again, at a certain time, you know, if you're interested in different things, let us know. We have a very strong bench where we also can assist with not only instructing, but also assisting with integrations if that's something you're interested in too, or product design. Feel and Agile. But with that, just want to thank everyone for coming. And again, look for future webcasts coming.